Uh,
We are live. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to have everyone here that is joining us this evening live on Facebook. Um, this is our week during Adoption and Permanency Awareness Month that we are talking about youth in care, and we're focusing on youth voices, the first person experience. Earlier today, we had an interview with Justin, which you can see on our page. It's available in the replay. Tonight, we are going to be talking to Tara Silas, and feel free to make comments. I'll check those in a little bit. And Tara, we were lucky enough to have Tara here to share her first person experience with us too. Welcome and thank you for joining us, Tara.
Thank you. I'm super excited and I guess just honored to have this opportunity and this platform. And yeah, I'm excited for this.
Really excited to have you here. Oh, and I forgot to introduce myself. My name's here, but I am Catherine Derry. I am one of the coordinators at the NB Adoption Support Network. So, Tara, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. I mean, as Catherine said, my name's Tara Silas-Pelletier. I live in Dalhousie, New Brunswick, so in the northern region. I have a daughter, an 18-month-old. I work as a child protection social worker. So I actually work at social development. So, I mean, but for tonight, I'm taking that like social work, trying to take that social work hat off and using my voice from being a former youth in care. But that's kind of me in a nutshell. Wife, a
Okay.
mom, yeah, social worker, and yeah.
And you have a blog too, right?
A what? Sorry.
Don't you do a blog too, I hear.
Yeah, I have a
It's a
podcast.
podcast. Oh, it's a
I
podcast.
have,
Okay.
yeah, I have a podcast. It's you can actually still search it. We have a page on Facebook, Instagram, and you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It's called Mamas with Trauma and Unpopular Opinions. So it's everything mom related. I use my past experience of being, from being in care and how that affects me now as being a mom and whatnot. So
That is really great. I'm going to
yeah.
definitely check that out. Um, could you tell us how did you first come into care?
So it began when I was around, I would say 9 or 10 years old, is when I would have first been, when I first entered care. And I mean, all the dates, the timelines, everything gets jumbled into one. It's because my experience was transitioning in care, out of care, in care, out of care, so things do get like mixed up in my head sometimes when I do look back. Yes, but so I have a sister, a full sister, and we my parents separated when I was very young. Um, my mother struggled, with her issues and her mental health and whatnot. And now looking back and now where we are in our relationship, we've done a lot of healing, and I can also come to an understanding being a mom now, having my own trauma and whatnot, that why she had to do what she did, by she did leave us at a young age to take care of herself. And we were with my father, and my father did do the best he could. But unfortunately, when we became a blended family with someone else, things, took a different turn for us at a very young age. I was about 8, I guess 8, 7, 8 years old when things, began, my world began to change. And yeah, so my first time being in care was around the age of 10. I was placed in care in this region, actually. This is where I would have experienced my time in care, my social workers, everything was in this region where I live and work now. So I would have been in a foster home, and I would have transitioned to a kinship placement with my paternal aunt, and reunified back home. A couple of years later, I leave again. I go to a different foster home. Um, and then I go back, reunify back home. and then I go into a foster home again. So it was about, I would say, 3 times. Sometimes I think it's 4, but like I said, it gets confusing. During all of those times when I was placed, my sister was also removed, I believe twice, and we were not placed together, unfortunately. So that's definitely something, that's very important to talk about when we talk about like permanency and placements and um, my time and my experience in care, not being, with my sister. But the last time that I was placed into care, I was around 13, 14. I I actually made the decision when I had the opportunity to flee. When I had the chance, I was left alone, like by my caregivers. I was in a vehicle just waiting outside of a store, in the parking lot where social development is in Hamilton. And just something spoke to me and said, you just got to run. So I just ran. I didn't look back. I ran to the office that I knew where one of my social workers worked. And I just banged on the door and said, you got to help me. Like, please, please let me in. I can't go back. Like, she's going to come after me. And I went into the office. My social worker was there in the office. She brought me into her office. She sat me down and said, you're okay. You're safe. Like, don't worry about it. She bought me a meal. I told her everything and said, like, you cannot let me go back. I will tell you everything. I know I recanted many times. I know this and that, but like, this is what's going on. I will die if you leave me in that home. And I said, now please get my sister out. And it was just me. So that's basically where my time, my last time in care would have kind of ended. Like I was placed into care though. I said, oh, and by the way, can you call Susan, the last foster home I was in? Can you see if she'll take me? She was awesome. Calls her up. Will you take Tara? First, yeah, bring her over. And she's a wonderful, wonderful woman. Everyone knows her in this region. She fostered for a long, long time. She made a huge difference on my life, and who I was and my experience in care. It was like one of maybe like the first times where I felt safe, loved. I was able to be a kid, express myself, and that's exactly why I asked to go back there when I was thinking of what safety was to me, was going there. And yeah, they placed me there. My sister eventually was removed, but not placed with me. Thankfully, our foster mothers were in close proximity and very close friends. So we spent a lot of time together. And me and my sister were then reunified with my mother, who we determined was in Ontario. And it was decided that I would not go back to like my home that I was removed from. So the option was we stay in care for, up until we age out, or we go, onto the adoption list, or we go with my mother who wants us, right? We have a mother that wants us. And um so we moved from New Brunswick to Ontario, with my mother and my stepfather, and that is when my time from care ended. My experience with the system, I wasn't followed up. Anything, everything was kind of cut, not cut, but shut, from then on. And it was almost like I went to a new placement, because although it was my mother, we hadn't, had this relationship, or we didn't have this attachment for like, maybe like how many years, 8 years. So it was all like starting over again. But I mean, we were able to live freely and safely and, whatnot. But I definitely didn't process everything because we were not offered services or follow up. Essentially, like I just tried to figure life out the best I could using my fight, flight responses, trying to navigate life. And when it was like 2013, so I was maybe like 22 years old. I was like, I need a change in my life. Something's calling me back to New Brunswick. It's my time to pursue what I always said I was going to do, to be a social worker. And I found out about St. Thomas University in Fredericton, and my sister had also moved back here, and I was like, I gotta follow her because we gotta stick together. Um, and yeah, I moved to Fredericton, and to go to St. Thomas to do my undergrad, and then followed up with a social work degree. And this is where I am, and this is my, where my life is now. And that was kind of like the timeline, I guess, of like from being in care, out of care, where I am now. But yeah, it's been a journey.
It was a long journey, huh? Like lots of twists and turns and
Yeah, and it still is twists and turns. I'm not going to say everything is figured out and perfect. I'm still doing a lot of healing at age
of
32.
course.
I mean, I only came to terms with who I was, my past, my trauma, when I was in St. Thomas, because it's such a wonderful school. There's so much awareness, advocacy. There's so many opportunities, and everyone's just so lovely, and you get to learn so much about yourself and the world. So being like 23, I'm like, oh, I have a lot going on that I got to deal with. So yeah. Anyways, and that's kind of where I am now. But every day is something new still. But yeah.
Um, Based on your journey, what are your thoughts about adoption, fostering, and kinship? And
So
whatever ones you feel like you
yeah.
can answer. Yeah.
So like I said, I had different experiences in different placements. They were
Mhm.
never the same, right? Um, Kinship was definitely one of the better experiences I had because I was with family. I was with
Mhm.
and I don't reflect on this that much, which is strange, maybe just because I'm always focusing on like placement as in like foster home. But when I was in the kinship placement with my aunt and uncle, I mean, I was treated so well and I was able to see family more because it was like, okay, we're just going to go to my grandmother. We're just going to go here and there. We're just going to do these things that don't have to be arranged through like a third party, right? You just, those connections are so much more close and there's a better understanding of each other because we're family and we have a history and I had such a good time and I was also able to build a closer relationship with like my aunt and uncle and open up to them and have a bond with them and created that I would maybe not have had before. So, and just the fact that she opened up her doors, you know, for me not knowing what she was getting into, right? Being family, it can be tricky when you're in that position, but I always advocate for kinship, service, and placements now being in my job. But when I look back on my experience in care, I never really talk about that. I always talk about the foster home experience. But yeah, it is important to kind of highlight the impact like kinship homes and families can have. I guess mine was just a little bit different because the plan was to reunify back home and it wasn't permanency at that point. Um, and the reason why I wanted to return to the foster home and I didn't ask to be with family. I sometimes I still am confused by it. Maybe it was being scared that because it's family, um, they won't believe me or they'll push for me to go back home more. There's more of like a tricky line there. Opposed to a foster home, it's kind of like there's no really attachment towards my family, and I didn't want to go back home. But when I was in the foster home that I was in the last time, as I said, I was able to build an identity for myself, just be a kid. Um, I was shown love, you know, what that really looks like without, you know, all these other things and not having to look over my shoulder, not having to scan the room and didn't have to always be hyper vigilant about everything. Everything was calm and um, just this like relationship of like, you know, having it back and forth. And just I was just treated as an equal within the family dynamic as well. I didn't feel like an outsider. And I remember when we were talking about what was going to happen next, if it wasn't going that, you know, my mother wanted us to live with her, I remember saying like, I don't want to. Like I want you to adopt me. I want to stay here. I'm comfortable here. I'm finally happy. Like I finally got this. Like I don't know what to expect, right? If I'm going to a different province. And yeah, she's my mother, but I mean, it's just I know what to expect here. So it's definitely scary um, when these transitions happen or these things that come up that happen that you may not have control over, that ultimately other people are deciding for you, that they believe is in your best interest. And maybe, yes, there was obviously really good things that came along with it. But at that time, I think looking back now, I had that sense of like safety, permanency, and if I didn't have maybe my mother saying, like wanting us, I mean, I probably would have been like, yes, please adopt me. Can I stay here? Like, this is what it's supposed to feel like. When someone says they want you, when you're talking about adoption, this is what it feels like, is that it's just home. It's
Mm.
safety, it's love, it's all those things that you like just hope for and hope for when you come from a home of, not having that.
Absolutely. Home is safety and love. You're right.
I hope that answers your question.
That's no, it really does. It's a really good answer. My next question is, how prepared and supported did you feel as a young person entering the world? What was helpful and what was not?
Well, I it's funny because coming from what I had experienced, I had this sense of independency because I had to be, right? I had to keep myself safe. I was the only one that was going to protect me. I couldn't rely on anyone else for safety. Um, so I learned at a very, very young age how to be independent, and also I have to take care of my sister. So that's always on my mind. And I didn't have the follow up, like I said, from social development or any, child and family services or anything in Ontario. So we didn't have that opportunity where maybe looking back now, I would have pursued post-secondary or therapy, family therapy with my mother, all those things so much sooner, and healing could have started much sooner. And I wouldn't have into the world just trying to do the best I could and relying on what I'm seeing around me, I guess, right, from my peers and whatnot, and just going off of just what I know, which is like barely, which is nothing. Although I did have my mother caring for me and guiding me, but I also was just like, I can't rely on you. Like I'm gonna do it on my own. I'm gonna do it on my own, just because I didn't have that healing, right?
Right.
So going out into the world, like I moved out from my mom's many times. I definitely had that flight response, escape response every time something went wrong. So I said, I'm gonna, go out, I'm gonna try to go to college, I'm gonna do all these things. And I just, I wasn't prepared. I didn't have a vehicle. I had applied for a loan that I couldn't pay for. I had an apartment with my sister. She was going to school. I had to make sure she's being taken care of while also not dealing with anything. So trying to be like a mother and young adult and pursuing college and work and all these things, it didn't make sense. So it was very scary. And unfortunately, you just look to those things are gonna help you escape more easily, which is like maybe dabbling into things like partying or drinking, all those fun things that young adults do. And because those are the easy things, I guess, to kind of cope.
Yes.
And socializing it makes you feel part of something. You make friends, and it's fun. And um, it was just very difficult. I was just kind of grasping at straws, grasping at anything that was kind of like that would look shiny and bright. um, but also still trying to maintain my independence, but not having any skills. Just like hoping I'm doing the best I can with this sense of like I can do it. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna accomplish this. I don't gotta rely on anybody. And then, like I said, back in 2013, when I was like, gotta do something with my life, right? Like it just doesn't feel right. I'm ready to pursue something else and make that leap. Um, Reaching out to other people, reaching out to like people at STU, like admin and whatnot, to connect with definitely helped because I couldn't do it on my own. I had no idea what I was getting into going from Ontario to Fredericton, right? And going to university. There's so many things to prepare for. So that's when I had to be like, no, I have to now. I should lean on those what's out there to support me. I should look to my family for advice and help and support. And suck it up and do that. So I accepted the help and support and whatnot of making that move and that transition, and it definitely helped because um, I'm not sure I would have actually done it if I could if it was on my own. And now, like I said, looking back, I like all those things would have been done probably more easily and sooner if I would have had, all those supports, following up after I was had transitioned, I guess, out of care.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, like you magically turn 19, 20, 21, everybody still needs help and support, right?
Exactly. So it just because I find sometimes it's looked at as when you age out of care, um, are you prepared? Did you like with the resources, services that you had, being within the system up until that age, but like I didn't have that because I was with my mother and we weren't followed up. So we didn't know like
Yeah.
where to go, what to reach out to, who to reach out to. It was just kind of like social development was no longer right an option because we're in Ontario, and I guess I don't know, maybe my mother wouldn't have even thought of reaching out who to call because of not having those connections or resources in Ontario. So yeah.
Thank you. One last question. Why do you think youth voices of those who've been in care, why do you think those are so important?
Ugh, where do I start? I mean, like the short, simple answer is because we experienced it firsthand. We'll give you the unfiltered truth of what it is because it is what it was, and we felt it, we experienced it. Um, it has impacted us, who we are now as, adults or young adults growing up, understanding ourselves in the world, what our time in care and in placements shaped us and will shape, current children and youth who are in care. That's the opportunity for those people caring for children like me to make the most impact on them. So, like when I'm looking back on my time in care, I had I had good experiences in care. If I didn't, I wonder where I would, where I would have, what journey I would have taken, where I would have, if I would have went a different route or right. So uh, yeah, we're the ones that are going to give you the full, I guess, honest experience of what, what it is like. And we can be the ones to advocate for change, knowing what we went through and what was good, what was bad, what could have been better, what could have been different. Like we're definitely the ones that can give you that full picture.
Yeah, you guys understand the experience and you can use that understanding to help people make change, whether it be a foster parent or a government decision maker. Like those voices are the most important, you know?
That's exactly why I'm in the field that I'm in, and I can't see myself doing anything else. It
Oh,
doesn't
it's
it doesn't make sense. I can't think of, um, people think
it's
of corporate.
amazing.
Yeah,
Both you and today, you and the gentleman I spoke to earlier, Justin, he works with young people. It's so
yeah,
inspiring to see
it's
people
wonderful.
who've had that experience give back, in a way that helps kids that are in the same situation now,
And I
in
mean,
different ways.
it's it is nice to and like when I was watching your guys' interview earlier, I'm just like, wow, like it's nice to see like the work that he's doing. And I when I was in university, I started out as like a family support worker, a group home worker,
Yes.
all that, right? Like kind of
Yeah.
feeling it out, like
Yeah.
is this what I want to do? And um yeah, like it's just funny because when you think of like child protection, people are like, you really like that must be hard work. Like really, I'm like, I don't know, just what else am I, from what who I am and what I grew up with, like what else am I gonna do? It's like I have to do this.
Exactly.
Like I'm the one that gets it and I can relate to these families, these kids, these, you know, um, So I just it wouldn't really make sense for me, and to also be an advocate and be part of the New Brunswick Youth and Care Network, and I'm also part of the New Brunswick Youth Council. So I try
Amazing.
to do anything I can just to use the voice that I have. Like I'm on this earth for however long. What I went through, I might as well use it for some good, right? Like it is what it is, and I might as well use my loud voice for something good.
Well, I'm glad you are. I want to thank you so much, Tara, for speaking with us this evening. If you are catching us on the replay, please feel free to leave comments. Also, please feel free to watch our other live from earlier on the replay with Justin. And there will be one more live with Youth Voices on Friday, time to be announced with Melanie Doucette. So you don't want to miss that one either. I want to wish everybody a great evening. Thank you, Tara.
Thank you so much.